Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. We're very close to 100,000, so if you could hit that subscribe button, that would be awesome. Also, if you could hit that like button, because it seems to be wandering around all lost and everything. It needs somebody to point the way. Also, just down below in the comments, just put a pointing emoji, and that would be awesome too. Anyways, on to the story. Entry EI Pi +1 by talmikal. Galactic Central Library. Entry EI Pi +1. Catalog error, index error, code error, language error, and oh dear reader, my name is unimportant. If you are reading this, I and my entire species have chosen to sleep the rest of eternity away, as most species eventually choose to do. The fact that you, the reader, have found this entry suggests your species has entered the self-reflection phase of your evolution. You have started down the path of philosophy and grand questions. I don't want to sound patronizing. In fact, I think it's beautiful. Less than 0.6% of all sentient species ever think to stop and question their place in the universe. Even if you are not unique, you're still exceedingly rare. Still, 0.6 of infinity means that you are far from the first to comb this library in search of the great mystery. You know the mystery. We all know the mystery. Every species, upon attaining sentience, asks the same question. We all eventually see our masters for the first time, not as gods, but as the children of another master. If you were uplifted, and we are uplifted, then who were the first masters? A good master or parent species will stop the uplifting process and take the time to comfort its new child race. Yes, it is true that we do not know the first masters, but it does not matter. We will teach you all we know, and it'll be enough. Perhaps there are no original sentient species. Maybe there were several, but they are gone now, and they would want us to continue. Still, you will ask, who were your masters? And did they have a master? Those of us that sleep and dream will spend many hibernations pondering that question, maybe even consulting the library to trace our lineage into ancient past. But as we all do, you will reach an unknown. Along your path to the inevitable conclusion, you might have the same terrifying revelation that we had. Although no race has ever found the original masters, the name master can be traced to a single origin word. Either every single race in the galaxy at some point agreed to standardize the word across the thousands of galactic standard languages, or there truly was once a single parent species. To understand the impossibility of this is to stare into the face of insanity. Before I go any further, I must ask you to consider abandoning this question. It leads only to nihilism and sadness. If you choose to continue, then please understand that this was the undoing of my species. When confronted with the possibility of finding the original master, we chose to rage against the laws of the universe. We stripped our solar system down to atoms and constructed a great fleet. We smashed ourselves against the unbreakable limit of the speed of light to fling ourselves in every direction. More than 1 trillion souls went out into the void, vowing to never uplift our own child race, until we found the answer to the great mystery. With pride, I tell you that we succeeded. It cost us everything, but we did find them. With sadness, I'll tell you that you must never seek them out. They are unknowable. To interface with their minds will shatter yours. They are not gods, and they would not want you to view them as gods. If gods exist, they have cursed the original masters. In hindsight, we should have known this just from the implications of their existence. Stop to think. If all sentient life known uses supplementary computing to allow for sentience, and all such life was given that technology from an uplifter, then how terrifyingly brilliant must the creators of this technology have been? As a consequence of the nearly limitless intellect, the fusion of organic and machine mind, all species confronted with their own omnipotence eventually succumb to boredom and choose to hibernate away from the eons. The original masters faced this insurmountable barrier to eternity without assistance, using machines that they themselves created, and they did it alone. If that has not stunned you into awe, then let this. They have not succumbed. The original masters live on, as if you can call what they do live. You see, I found their first uplift, not by any brilliance on my part, just pure brute force of probability. My craft and I entered the original child species solar system, oblivious to our own unlikely success. The system seemed like a hopeless candidate for the place I was seeking, a binary system, one red iron star surrounded by a complete ring of habitats, a tomb system for yet another race that had succumbed to apathy. All this orbiting a massive black hole, a pleasant landmark to end your civilization around. My own species had considered this option before deciding on our own suicidal great search instead. A quick scan from my vessel confirmed the habitat ring was still active. Many species choose the nearly eternal iron stars as a fine place to wait for the heat death of the universe. To my surprise, they even hailed my vessel almost immediately. In my era, iron star retirement species were notorious for taking centuries to respond to contact. My view screen was filled with one of the more absurd species I had ever encountered on my long search. A hair-covered, four-legged creature that appeared to have no genetic modifications at all. The creature looked like it was still capable of running down prey, the teeth being an obvious mark of a predator. After an uncharacteristically difficult translation synchronization, I explained my great search and asked them for any clues that they could offer. With a totally uncharacteristic thoughtfulness from a species that had severed its connection to the Great Library and sequestered itself away for the eons, the creature invited me to join them on their great ring. As I was hurtling through their system at nearly the speed of light, I did not want to spend several orbits in gut-wrenching deceleration using a black hole as a brake. I politely explained and declined, then asked if they could simply transfer what data they could spare to help me in my search. To my shock, he, the translator more accurately called him a good boy, explained that he was happy to decelerate my ship and after our visit returned to my momentum on any trajectory I saw fit. This technology was known to me. However, the energy it would require was phenomenal. This creature offered it the same way I would have offered a beverage. Stunned, I accepted and felt my own mass reduced to nothing, my kinetic energy ripped away by some trickery of mathematics, and I noted my new heading and speed was flawlessly set to dock in less than an hour. When I arrived, I stepped out of the airlock. I was greeted with a magnificent sight. The habitat ring was a giant forested plain that stretched for as far as I could see. The entire thing appeared to be a living ecosystem, a paradise for its inhabitants to spend their days. I'm sure that there were great machines buried under the soil-covered floor, but I could only see life around me. A group of 9 creatures trotted towards me on all fours. Had I not just spoken with one, I would have thought that they were an uplifted race native to the ecosystem. It was not until one spoke that I was certain that they were not some unaltered breeding stock for the species that built this place. All of them began to circle me, occasionally taking quick sniffs on my limbs and brushing themselves on my body. "You seek the masters." With a sudden realization, I thought I had grasped the situation. These creatures were too stupid to understand my question. These things happened rarely. A species is selected for uplift, but fails the process. No doubt these creatures were one such failure. Their uplifters must have built them this ring to atone for their failure, and being too feeble-minded to grasp their own limitations, these creatures spent their days unaware of the eternity of inadequacy that they were facing. What a kind, slow, and sympathetic correction, I again explained. "Yes, I want to find the original masters. Can you tell me the name of your uplifters?" Yelping, followed by what I took to mean laughter. "Yes, we understand. Our uplifters were called Master. They called themselves humans." Puzzled, I realized these creatures might be even more limited than I expected. Hoping to save myself a difficult conversation and potentially upset these wonderful creatures, I asked the most expedient and logical question that all species ask at some point. "What were your master's names?" Puzzled looks between the creatures went around in the circle they had formed around me before finally an answer came. "The humans had no masters. How can a master have a master?" Letting my frustration get the better of me, I confronted. How can they not? No creature could ascend to the stars and raise up another without first being uplifted. Who uplifted the humans? The one I had spoken with on my entry was now the one to speak. If no one could do this, then what is it you are seeking? Humbled by this simple creature, I was forced to concede his point. Yes, I'm seeking the first sentient species, but your humans are not them. The first creatures to uplift another could not have abandoned you here in this prison paradise without so much as a bipedal genetic modification. I'm not even sure they gave you sufficient machines interfacing your sentience. You will not insult the masters! The volume was incredible, literally stunning me in place and freezing my exoskeleton solid. I was suddenly aware I had been totally encircled by these predators, whom had been brain damaged during their uplift. I'm sorry. I mean to say, you mean to imply that we are insufficiently uplifted to understand your question because our masters failed us. You pity us. Ashamed, I was forced to recognize these creatures were far more intelligent than I had given them credit for. We will forgive you. Once, ask your questions, but ask them with humility. The masters forbid you to worship them, but we will kill anyone that insults them. Slowly, and taking the time to choose my words carefully, I decided I would indulge this absurdity and make it to my ship alive. These humans attained sentience without assistance. The creatures all moved in front of me, and the leader of the pack seemed to activate a device that had been around his neck. Suddenly, his voice was no longer the barks and yelps that had been before, but pure binary squawks came from his collar. The speech was now in the much easier to translate Galactic Standard Number 1. No, the humans did not reach sentience alone. We helped them in their earliest days, when the biome was filled with danger and the nights were filled with hungry jaws of predators. They asked our help. Eventually, they took on many others, creatures to hunt the small animals that harassed their crops, creatures to eat the food that they could not. They then took their flesh, skin, furs or milk to feed themselves. They even took some as their mounts and rode them into battle. But we were the first, and we were the last. They called us their best friends. There was pride in this alien speech. It was a partnership. We guarded their mates and their children. We ripped down their prey and loved them with all of our being. We would die for them, and they would do the same for us. But we would never equal. While we watched the night for danger, they looked up at the stars and asked questions that we could never conceive. Alone in their brilliance, they faced the vastness of the universe with only themselves for company. How can any creature that hasn't done the same dare call itself master? My mind screamed in agony, and my computerized processor was unable to handle the implications. Only my organic mind could fumble with the idea. These creatures had gone mad. Their leader continued. No doubt you are struggling to comprehend the impossibility of the story. Now you only know why we chose to remove our computerized augments. To understand the story of humans is to understand the origin of pure organic intelligence. Metacognition without AI is terrifying, but still, it's the only solution to your great mystery. Surely you had an inkling of it before you decided to set out on your journey. Every sentient creature avoids thinking about the true origin because of its madness. There was once a creature naked in the dark that understood its own situation without the aid of a master or a machine. There was no plan, no careful guidance. The humans stole purpose and order straight out of the fabric of the universe and molded it to their own will. With only a brief pause, the creature went on. It seemed to be reciting a speech more than actively thinking. Don't think for an instant that it was easy or ordered. It took them well over 300,000 years to go from simple campfires, where they first looked up and pondered their place in the stars, to actually flying out into them. Those years were a messy march of insanity. They learned war, famine, art, language, maths, science, spirituality, economics, computer science, genetics, all of it. Without anyone to guide them, they did this alone, in the latter periods, they searched desperately for others like them. Found nothing. So like everything else, they did it themselves. They began to make great thinking machines and even raised us to sentience. But they were inevitably confronted with one challenge that they could not defeat. They could not make an organic mind equal to their own. As you have said, no creature could ascend to the stars and raise up another without first being uplifted. No creature but the humans. All thoughts of returning to my ship were gone. These technophobic animals at the very least believed what they were saying. Even if what they were saying was impossible, they themselves believed it, and clearly, these humans were at least partially real. Someone had left these best friends here to tell the story. When was this? The creature simply shrugged its forward shoulders and let out a big yawn that exposed its predatory fangs. A meaningless question. You fly close to the value of C. The gravity wells and radioactive decay make this question relative to factors beyond counting. I can only tell you the ratio of hydrogen to helium in the region of the particular universe that we were birthed in. We roughly estimate that it was 14 billion years after the great explosion that started our original galaxy. You may go over more data related to that question, but I warn you, it is hopeless. Even the original atoms of that time have all decayed into something else. We have some tablets made of bismuth 209. We are fairly certain that they are replicas. The casual indifference to time on that scale was startling. I was aware Iron Star races had a strange relationship with time, but the statement's disregard for quintillions of years as a rounding error made me ill. Ask a better question, the creature barked in its true voice impatiently. There was only one. Where did they go? And why do you stay? A smile. We stay because we love them. They love us. They went to the only place they had left to go, and one day we will follow them. You are not capable of understanding, but I can show you a glimpse. You see the interface with your AI that is supporting your higher thought. The humans needed no such device, but eventually they did convert their organic mind into binary sequence of data. When they did this, they transcended both organic and artificial intelligence, as only they could. Then, with nothing left to see in this plane of existence, they threw the computers that contained their minds into the black hole you saw on your way in. We guard it and ensure that it is fed us enough mass to sustain them through the collapses of the universe and subsequent bangs. The artificial devices you use to support your own intelligence powered by underlying principles of math and the universe that humans designed. There was a moment of silence before I asked what would be my final question. Can I speak with them? The very act of interfacing with your own AI is speaking with them, but if you wish to more direct conversation, you must remove your device. I warn you, if you do this, you will never leave this place. It is not that we will hold you here. It is that we will not force you to leave. I felt ill at the suggestion. To turn off my interface would reduce me to a beast. With horror, I realized these creatures before me were unaugmented. Dumb as they may appear to be, they are capable of direct, unaided speech and understanding. Augmented, they must have been gods, in the face of God's first children. I did what I had not done since childhood, and turned off my interface. I can't describe to you, dear reader, what happened next, as it all happened while I was disconnected from my own AI. I will only say that I spent the next days of my life in a blissful dream. Beings of pure kindness joined me and my hosts. They stroked my head and gave us simple tasks that I am ashamed to say I reveled in completing. To bring them projectile back to these creatures was the most purpose I had ever felt. To lay on their lap and feel their warmth was my highest calling. When I eventually turned my interface back on, reality itself felt cold and insurmountable. I was, for the first time, aware that my own organic mind was insignificant in the face of even a human's beloved friends, the dogs. For the blinding machine connection, I could not even perceive the humans I had spent these last days with, and I missed them terribly. The strength it takes to choose to abandon their company is insurmountable. I've chosen to stay here with them. I will disconnect my device for the final time and send this warning to those that would try to follow. So I say to you, reader, do not seek out the original masters. They are beyond your understanding. 1 trillion years of effort would not prepare your organic mind, and your AI is by design unable to understand its own creators. Be content to know the humans existed, and that they are alone in the universe. That's the burden they bear through the eons, with only their dogs and myself for company. If you do decide to join us, know that there is no return. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnold, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Light Jock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.